What if the place you ran to hide from your past was the same place your heart finally woke up again? Elias Graves didn't ask the question out loud, but the thought sat heavy on him the moment he saw Sulphur Creek lying in the valley like a torn wound in the earth. He sat on his tired horse at the ridge, breath white in the cold air. 3 weeks on the trail had turned his body stiff and sore, but he didn't complain. He wanted the silence. He wanted the miles. He wanted to leave Dodge City behind. The badge he once wore, the blood he couldn't wash off, the memory of his brother dying on the dusty street. Now this broken little Montana town was his end of the line. He rode down the frozen track, passing boarded windows and sagging rooftops. Smoke from the mine drifted across the sky like dirty scars. No one looked his way. No one cared. That was what he wanted. At the general store, the land agent barely glanced up when Elias asked for a place far from town. "A shack," the man said. "Old and forgotten. Maybe the owner left in a hurry. Maybe in a box." Elias didn't care. He paid in cash. He didn't even look at the land. He just wanted paper that said he could be left alone. The shack was small, rough, and broken. Half the windows were shattered. The porch leaned like it was tired of holding itself up. But it was quiet, empty. It was a place where no one knew him. For 10 days he worked from dawn until his hands went numb. He patched the roof, re-chinked the logs, replaced the windows with oiled canvas, hauled lumber, cut wood, dug a latrine, ate rabbits and grouse he hunted, slept on the floor with his coat for a blanket and his revolver under his saddle. He didn't speak to another soul. And then, on the 10th day, he saw her. He was on the roof, hammer in hand, when he looked toward the only other homestead nearby. A quarter-mile away stood a small house with a tiny yard and a chicken coop. A woman was outside hanging laundry, fighting the brutal wind that whipped her skirts around her boots. Her hair was dark, pulled tight, though the gusts tore pieces free. She moved with a firm, stubborn strength. She didn't have anyone to help her. No man holding the laundry line. No friendly neighbor bringing clothespins. She must have felt his eyes on her because she paused, turned, and looked straight toward his shack. Their gazes held for a second. Elias expected a polite nod. That was custom out here. But the woman, Cora Bell, gave him nothing. No smile, no greeting. Just a guarded, cold stare before she turned away and pinned another sheet with fierce force. The message was clear. She didn't want company. Fine, Elias thought. He didn't want any either, but the town made sure he heard about her anyway. Days later, he rode back to town for nails and kerosene. The miners were already halfway to drunk, their voices low and mean when they recognized him as the new neighbor of the widow Bell. "That one's cold as the weather," a miner muttered. "Not what I heard," another laughed. "Warm enough for old Silas Bell. Too warm, maybe. Died sudden, didn't he?" "Poison," someone whispered, loud enough for everyone to hear. She didn't shed a tear over him. Elias didn't turn, didn't look. He kept his hat low, paid for his things, and walked out. But the words clung to him like smoke. When he rode home, he found himself glancing toward her cabin, toward the thin line of smoke rising from her chimney. She didn't look back his way. Life settled again into hard silence. Until the night the wolves came. Elias was cleaning his rifle when the sound hit him like a knife. Not a howl. A scream. A sharp, panicked shriek from the direction of the widow's chicken coop. He grabbed his rifle and ran. Snow crunched under his boots as he crossed the frozen ground. A lantern flickered on her porch. She was standing there, arm trembling, light shaking in her hand. "Get back inside!" Elias shouted. A massive gray wolf tore at the chicken coop door, feathers flying, the wood cracking under its weight. Another wolf circled, snarling, eyes glowing in the lantern light. Elias dropped to one knee and fired. The circle wolf fell with a yelp. The big one spun toward him, muzzle bloody, chicken dangling from its jaws. It growled, dropped the dead bird, and bolted into the darkness. Silence fell heavy. Elias approached the coop. Feathers and blood were everywhere. Only 2 chickens were left alive. The coop door hung loose, broken beyond saving. "Are you hurt?" he asked the widow. She shook her head. She had gone pale. She whispered, "They're all gone." "We'll bury them," Elias said. "The smell will draw the pack back." She nodded once, stiff as a frozen branch. For hours they worked in the bitter dark, digging a grave in the frozen ground. She shoveled beside him, silent and strong, her breath trembling in the cold. They buried the chickens, then the dead wolf. By dawn they were exhausted. "I thank you, Mr. Graves," she said. Her voice was flat, controlled, not warm, not friendly, but real. He saw something in her eyes then, deep, hollow sadness, the kind a person carries for years. He knew it because he carried the same. They parted without another word. But something had changed. The fence between them wasn't just old wood and rusted wire anymore. It was something else now. A thin, fragile thread of understanding. And neither of them knew how easily it could break. The morning after the wolves, the world was quiet in a way that felt uneasy. The sky hung low and gray, and the cold bit hard enough to feel like teeth. Elias spent the early hours stacking wood and checking his traps, trying to keep his mind steady, but every so often he found his eyes drifting toward the widow's house. Her chimney smoked steady. She was alive. That should have been enough. But it wasn't. By midday, he made a decision. He grabbed some lumber, nails, and a strip of clean cloth soaked in carbolic. He headed toward her broken coop. Cora Bell was already outside when he approached. She was fighting with a length of rusted barbed wire, trying to tie the shattered door back into place. Her hands were bare, red from the cold, her breath fast and shallow with stubborn effort. "Ma'am," Elias said softly. She didn't turn. "Mr. Graves, that wire won't hold." "It'll hold enough." "No, ma'am, it won't." She pulled harder, and the barb ripped across her palm. Blood spilled bright in the cold air. Corabel's breath hitched, but she turned away fast, trying to hide the pain. Elias stepped forward. "Let me see it." "It's nothing. It's rust and dirt. That's poison. Give me your hand." She stayed stiff, refusing, until he did the one thing he never meant to do. He spoke her name softly. "Cora." She froze. Slowly, she let him take her wrist. Her skin was ice cold. Her hand trembled in his. He opened her palm gently and saw the deep red gash. "This will sting," he said. She didn't flinch. Not when he poured the carbolic. Not when the burn hit. Not when he wrapped the cloth around her palm. Her jaw stayed set, her eyes fixed on the frozen ground. When he finished, he stepped back. "Keep it clean." She pulled her hand to her chest, protective, still guarded. Elias pointed at the coop. "I'll rebuild it." "I don't need your help." "I'm not offering help. I'm offering nails. Your birds will freeze without a proper door." She didn't argue again. She simply stiffened, turned away, and walked back to her house without another word. Elias rebuilt the entire coop by noon. Stronger, tighter, safer. He didn't knock on her door. He just walked home. The next morning, 2 eggs were left on his fence post. A quiet thank you. He didn't smile, but something eased in his chest. That night, he left a cleaned rabbit on her porch. For days, that was their language. Eggs, wood, meat, clean stitches on a coat, a fixed board on a fence, a bucket pulled from a frozen well. Not friendship, not closeness, something in between, something dangerous. Snow arrived in early November, not gentle flakes, but a storm that slammed against the valley like a hammer. The wind moaned across the empty land. The drifts piled higher than a man's waist. The cold pressed into the cracks of their homes like a living thing. By the second night, Elias's fire was low, and his woodpile thinning. He couldn't sleep. The past pressed on him in the dark, the gunfire in Dodge, his brother's blood, the boy he shot too many times. When the wind screamed hardest, he snapped. He grabbed his coat, rope, and rifle, tied the rope to his door, and stepped into the storm. The snow blinded him instantly. He could barely breathe, but he knew her house was out there. Somewhere. Every step was a fight. Snow to his knees, wind pushing him sideways. Twice he slipped. Twice the rope yanked him back from losing all direction. By the time he found her porch, he wasn't a man anymore. He was a shaking, frozen shape, barely standing. He pounded on her door once. It opened a crack. A single, fearful eye stared out. "Elias!" He collapsed through the doorway before she could finish. Snow blew in behind him. She fought the wind, slammed the door shut, and dropped the bar into place. Her cabin was warm. Fire glowed bright. Coffee boiled on the stove. "Get up," she ordered, her voice sharp, worried. He couldn't. He shook so hard he could barely hold the cup she shoved into his hands. His words spilled out messy, unfinished. Too much, cold Jacob blood. Her face softened, but only for a heartbeat. She grabbed him under the arms, pulling him toward the stove. She ripped off his coat, tore off his gloves, forced hot coffee between his lips. "You're a fool," she said, "but you're not dying on my floor." He slept within minutes, curled on the rug near the fire. Cora stayed awake the whole night, shotgun on her lap, watching him. In the dark, he shivered. His shirt slipped down and she saw his scars. Deep, ugly bullet wounds. She understood then. His past was carved into him, just like hers was carved into her. In the middle of the night, she covered him with a heavy wool coat, a coat that had belonged to Silas Bell. She tucked it around him gently, then sat back in her chair, eyes tired and soft. In the morning, he tried to leave quietly, ashamed. "There's coffee," she said without turning. He froze. "The snow's too deep," she added. "Sit." He did. They drank in silence. She didn't ask about Dodge. He didn't ask about Silas. It was a gift. They both needed that silence. The days that followed changed everything. They dug paths together, shared meals, shared fire. He repaired her roof. She mended his clothes, each small thing pulling them closer in ways neither spoke about but both felt. One night, while kneading dough side by side, flour on their hands, her shoulder brushed his. She didn't move away, neither did he. Her breath caught. His hand covered hers, guiding the dough. "You deserve better mornings," he whispered. She leaned into him, resting her flour-dusted head against his shoulder. That night, the line between them finally cracked. A kiss. Slow, desperate, full of longing neither had touched in years. But when his hand slid gently to her waist, she stiffened. Panic flashed in her eyes. "I can't," she whispered, pulling away, trembling. Elias stepped back immediately. "I'm sorry," he said. "No," she whispered. "You didn't do wrong. I can't be someone's property again." The word hit him hard. Property. He left into the cold without another word. 3 days of silence followed. But trouble was only just beginning. The silence between them hung heavy for days. Elias stayed in his shack, chopping wood until his muscles shook. Cora kept to her cabin, her lights dim at night, her steps slow and tired. The space between their homes felt wider than the whole Montana Valley. Then the thaw came, a messy, muddy stretch that softened the land just enough for Elias to ride into Sulphur Creek for supplies. He sensed trouble before he even stepped off his horse. A new bay horse was tied outside the saloon, clean saddle, city-made. A stranger's. Inside the general store, the air felt wrong. The miners watched him with tight jaws. The storekeep wouldn't look him in the eye. Then the saloon doors banged open. A tall man in a fine black coat walked in, sharp-eyed, sharp-tongued, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Which one of you is keeping company with the murderous widow?" he said loudly. Elias turned. The man smirked. "You! Must be you!" He stepped closer. "Arthur Bell, cousin of the late Silas Bell." Elias said nothing. "I've been speaking with the magistrate," Arthur went on. "The widow killed my cousin, poisoned him." "Everyone knows it," the miners murmured, eager for drama. "And now that I'm here," Arthur said proudly, "I'm taking back the Bell land, all of it, and dragging her to the gallows if I must." Elias felt heat rise in his chest. Slow, cold, dangerous. "You'll stay away from her," he said. Arthur laughed. Or what? You'll shoot me. Please. This is a matter of law. He leaned in, close, eyes gleaming. And you, mister, are nothing but her stray dog. Get in my way, and you'll regret it. He walked out, slamming the door. The town was listening. They all were. Elias knew what was coming. He rode home fast. When he stepped into Cora's cabin, she turned from the stove, her face softening for just an instant before worry took over. What is it? She asked. Arthur Bell, Elias said. He's in town. All the color drained from her face. He's come for the land, she whispered, and for you. Her hands clutched the back of a chair. Her breath shook. I knew it. I knew one day someone would come. We'll fight it, Elias said. She looked at him with tired, empty eyes. You can't fight lies with the truth, Elias. Not in a town that already chose its story. But he didn't stop believing they could stand together. 2 weeks later, the judge arrived for the hearing. The whole town came. Cora wore her plain gray dress, hair pulled tight, face pale but steady. She walked beside Elias through the silent crowd. They hurled whispers like stones. Some didn't even hide their hatred. Inside the cramped land office, Arthur's lawyer called witness after witness. Miners spoke of rumors. Townsfolk spoke of their suspicions. Arthur waved his hands dramatically, painting Silas Bell as a good man done wrong. Then the judge looked at Cora. Ma'am, do you have someone to speak for you? She said nothing. Elias stood. I will. He stepped forward. He placed his hand on the Bible. He didn't look at the crowd, only at her. My name is Elias Graves, he said, and I came here running. The judge eyed him. From what, Mr. Graves? Myself, Elias answered. The room dropped into silence. I was a deputy marshal in Dodge City. A gunfight went bad. My brother was killed. And I killed a boy. He had a gun, but he was no threat. I fired anyway, too many times. I destroyed my own life, so I left. I came here to bury what I used to be. He turned toward Cora. But she is not a killer. She is the bravest woman I've known. She survived her husband. She survived this town. She survived being alone. And she did nothing but keep herself alive. The lawyer tried to interrupt, but the judge held up a hand. Mrs. Bell, the judge said quietly, did you poison your husband? The room leaned in. Cora's lips trembled. She closed her eyes. When she opened them, they were full of years of pain. No, she whispered. I didn't kill him, but I wanted him gone. I prayed for it. Every night. Because he tied me up. He broke me. He told everyone I was mad, so no one would help me. He hurt me until I didn't know my own voice. She looked around the room, the same people who had gossiped about her for years. You all believed him, she said. You all helped him. Silence crushed the room. Arthur jumped up. She admitted it. The judge slammed his gavel. She admitted fear, not guilt. Case dismissed. The land remains hers. Cora sagged, shoulders shaking. Elias stood beside her, a shield against the stairs. They walked out together. A rock flew from the crowd. Elias saw it too late. He shoved her behind him and took the hit to his shoulder. He grunted but stayed standing. Cora screamed his name. Walk, he told her calmly. Don't run. He gripped her hand and they left the town behind forever. Back at the cabin, she cleaned his wound, tears running down her face. You bled for me, she whispered. Why? Why do you stay? Quote. He lifted his good hand, touched her cheek gently. Because I'd die, he said, voice breaking, before I let you stand alone again. The wall she had built for years finally cracked. She threw her arms around him, crying into his shoulder. He held her close, steady and warm. That night, they clung to each other, not with fear, but with the desperate honesty of two souls who had been cold for too long. Their love wasn't soft. It wasn't neat. It was fire against a long, cruel winter. Spring came. The ice melted. The river broke open. The land softened beneath their feet. They planted seeds in the garden, side by side, hands dirty, hearts steady. Elias carved a new nameplate for the cabin door. When he held it up, Cora pressed a hand to her mouth, eyes shining, the wood red. Belgraves. She touched the carved letters gently. "We're not alone anymore." Elias took her hand. "We're home," he said, and for the first time both of them believed it.